Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, we're going to get an energy update. We're going to check on how the prices of electricity are going, but first, can we start the gubernatorial election? It's 2014. Can we start it on this program right now, or at least after the break?
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Well, hold on, I'm going to turn right here. I'm not even going to introduce him. Can we start the gubernatorial election, or is it already started?
It starts when we say it starts. It's underway already. There are people running.
Brad?
John Hanger, a former DEP secretary, is formally declared.
So we have one declared candidate. All right, here we are, sitting across from me, as often is the case. He just spoke, is Brad Bumsted. He's the Capitol News Bureau Chief. Is that the way you call it? What is it? Pittsburgh Tribune-Review. And John Micek, he's the editorial page editor of the Harrisburg Patriot. You have so many, these guys have so many titles. They're columnists, they're bloggers, we're going to forget all that. All right, we'll go back to John. Hold on, Brad, I want to start with you. Before we get into this, we had a heck of a scene in the state capitol where Kathleen Kane, the new Attorney General, goes and wants more money out of the state legislature than the governor recommended after just delivering her opinion that the lottery contract with Global Services, this English company to manage the lottery, is illegal. And how was she treated? Oh, come on.
And shortly after, she appointed a special deputy to investigate the Republican governor's handling of the Sandusky case while he was Attorney General. So you would think then that a Republican-controlled legislature might be somewhat cool to this new Democratic candidate. Not at all. It was a love fest.
Love fest.
She had the meeting out of her hand. She threw some red meat out there for politicians, the Mexican drug cartels moving into neighborhoods in Pennsylvania, and the need to take out more internet predators. Who can be against that?
Okay, John, look, you've covered. Do you think that Republicans are looking at her and saying, uh-oh, here's a future gubernatorial candidate, you know, obviously if not governor sometime? I mean,
she's an impressive figure. I mean, let's face it, who wants to be seen beating up on the new lady Attorney General? It's nearly impossible for them to do. It's a politically difficult proposition. What's amazing to me, though, is this is the same Kathleen Kane who on the campaign trail said she was going to be a blood and guts prosecutor, wasn't going to change the mission of the AG's office at all. Less than a month on the job, special prosecutor, kicks out the lottery contract, closes the Florida loophole. That looks a whole lot like an activist Attorney General.
Oh, yeah,
I'm telling you.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, what's sort of curious is, and you know, the lottery contract was not actually favored, Brad Bumsted, by a lot of Republicans, was it?
Well, that's right, and that was part of the reason for her great reception there yesterday. A number of the Republicans on the committee agreed with her decision, and Tommy Tomlinson, a Republican from Bucks County, flat out said so.
Oh, gosh. All right. What was that? What do we call that? A digression, I think we call that. All right, John, let's start with you.
Yes.
I mean, I don't remember a time, you go back through all these gubernatorial elections, governor running for re-election, the party that didn't have the governorship was running around begging to find someone to run. Now, as Brad pointed out, the list is a laundry list. There's, what, maybe 10 people, right?
Well, we were sitting in the green room before we came on the air here trying to figure out exactly who's running. It's like Mouseketeer roll call. There's new names being added to it all the time. I mean, but this, I mean, Democrats, I mean, we were talking back last October practically about Democrats lining up to challenge Governor Tom Corbett. I mean, it's just simply a function of the governor's really, really soft poll numbers. You've got him at 35, 37% approvals. He's been there for months and months and months and months. Unless something extraordinary happens, I don't know how he tops that 50% that's considered sort of the bare minimum for re-election. The governor has not formally said that he's going to run, but everyone, that's the expectation. So now Democrats are lining up because they frankly smell blood in the water.
We got John Hanger, former DEP secretary, one of the founders of one of the large, if not the most significant, I'll get in trouble here, environmental group, Penn Future, but an important, who's running, very smart guy. He's the only one formally announced, is that correct?
That's correct, but there are others who are, have a toe in the water, if you will, that I think would be on a higher tier.
Let's go through the first tier first.
Right, because Mr. Hanger may be a great candidate, but he's certainly unknown, completely unknown.
So let's go. Allison Schwartz, Congresswoman Schwartz,
State Treasurer Rob McCord,
okay,
and I think Joe Sestak, former U.S. Senate candidate, if he decides to run. Those three would be the top tier.
Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about each one of them. John, Allison Schwartz, you were there covering her when she was a state senator.
That's right.
Go ahead.
She's the 13th.
Talk about her. Say something about it.
In the 13th district out of Montgomery County, a chunk of Philadelphia, a classic suburban Philadelphia liberal lawmaker, has become an increasing force within the U.S. House Democratic Caucus.
Absolutely.
She raised a bunch of money for him last cycle. She was she was a core part of their re-elect effort. I ran into her in Pennsylvania Society in New York last December when her name was just beginning to bubble up, and she did the customary, well, it's nice to be mentioned kind of tap dance sort of thing, but it's looking increasingly like a serious run. People are sort of nudging her along. She appears to be listening to them. I think someone has even gone so far as to reserve web space for her. If you want a clear indication that somebody's serious, when you get a domain name, that's when it's hardcore.
All right, we're going to run to a break. We'll go back, we'll continue with this. But she has to be a serious candidate, right? There isn't any doubt about it. She has strengths and weaknesses.
She has about $3 million in her campaign fund that she can transfer
that
here.
Hurt. All right, we're going to come back. We're going to go through the rundown of some of these Democratic candidates. We're officially starting the gubernatorial contest for 2014 on this program.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania Business Council Education Foundation, educating citizens and business leaders about important public policy issues and civic affairs. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by BetterSaferRoads.com. To voice your support for safer highways and less traffic congestion, visit BetterSaferRoads.com. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
And welcome back with John Micek and Brad Bumsted. We're talking about the possible Democratic candidates to face Governor Corbett in 2014. Allison Schwartz, a congresswoman, certainly in the top tier, as John Micek points out. All right, let's talk a little bit about State Treasurer Rob McCord.
Real solid candidate from Montgomery County, was successful in business privately before becoming elected state treasurer. Real solid, but not well known throughout the state, despite having run twice for state treasurer. He's not exactly a household name. And for all of these folks, Sestak, Schwartz, McCord, there's nobody there that really wows me that says, oh my gosh, they could beat Corbett. I mean, we just don't know, but there's nobody really overpowering yet that's come out that would get your attention.
Yeah. Okay, but McCord, I mean, the guy's run twice. He's let's be candid, a millionaire. We all understand he's very wealthy, a business background. But he and Allison Schwartz are from the same county.
That's right.
Yeah. That's not as common as you would think in politics. All right.
And what's extraordinary is there's no major candidate who's emerged from the western half of the state yet.
Yeah.
Either. I mean, you go as far. We were talking about this. You go as far west as maybe New York, with the former Revenue Secretary Tom Wolf, who served under Governor Ed Rendell. But that's it. There's no major Pittsburgh name that's yet emerged.
So you gotta wonder, where I'm heading with this. If a candidate emerged from Pittsburgh and you have conceivably 5 or 6 candidates, if there's not a lot of pressure and they withdraw for don't run for whatever reason, to have this something we've seen in the past, Brad, in Pennsylvania politics, which is a candidate emerging out of the West because in the East the votes divided up.
Well, in the last governor's race where Corbett won, Dan Honorato, at that time the Allegheny County executive, was within a group of people running who were from other parts of the state, except for Jack Wagner was from there too. But I ran into a Western Pennsylvania Democrat this week who said he's really concerned about this lineup for running for governor, because if there are 4 or 5, 6 or 7 Democrats running, he says they're going to suck up all the money and we're going to wind up re-electing Tom Corbett, and he found that really unfortunate.
All right, a third candidate Brad mentioned, Joe Sestak, a former member of Congress, ran for the Senate, narrowly lost to Pat Toomey by 2 points. Take it away.
Mr. Sestak, again, sort of a liberal icon, and from the Southeast, yet again, this time Delaware County, the former 7th District Congressman, that's right.
That's right.
Was playing, some reporters out in the Southeast caught up with him earlier this week, and he was kind of playing coy about gubernatorial ambitions. He's one of these guys who's sort of on the bubble. I don't know, we'll see if he gets in or not.
There's a lot of cable. I see him on cable shows.
He does a whole lot of MSNBC.
Yeah, he's talking a lot about foreign policy as a retired admiral.
Yeah.
And he would be better known, having been in the intense spotlight of a Senate campaign, than Rob McCord. I mean, McCord's been elected twice, but treasurer is such a low-rung race that nobody pays much attention.
All right, let's talk about York businessman Tom Wolf. Obviously, another guy who could self-fund his own campaigns, right, John?
That's right.
But not well known, well thought of. Am I right about this? Pretty highly regarded. He was in the Rendell cabinet. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, well thought of. He's well off. Two great things when you're going to become a candidate, particularly since it's so hard to raise money. And if you start splitting up this Democratic vote with a cluster of people from the Southeast, maybe somebody from the Northeast emerges, if you've got if you're sitting on your own pot of cash, as we saw with Kathleen Kennedy in the Attorney General's race, it makes things a little bit easier for you.
Wolf is somebody who, if he really is committed to this and starts spending some money, could easily be in that top tier.
Yeah, my thoughts exactly. All right, now, moving around, we do have one possible Western candidate, although up from the Northwest. She served one term in Congress, Kathy Dahlkemper. Anyone?
Well, if it wasn't for Governor Tom Ridge, I would say no one from Erie can get elected, but we've had that happen. So.
Yes, we have. So, but no one, I mean, we're not going to end candidacies here. That's not our job. But as you weigh the assets and the attributes of candidates, you wouldn't put her anywhere near the top, would you?
No, sir.
And then we have this guy, Tom Knox, who seems to run for everything, another millionaire who could self-fund a campaign out of Philadelphia, but doesn't, again, seem to have a lot of traction. Anybody disagree with that?
He ran in 10 very briefly for the Democratic nomination. He ran for Philadelphia mayor as well. Sort of a, well, no disrespect, sort of a B-list candidate.
Yeah, for your old newspaper, I hear the mayor of Allentown.
Ed Pulowski is running for re-election. The mayor there, he's running for re-election. No opposition to speak of from the Republicans in Allentown. Sitting on a pot of money that he could conceivably transfer over for a gubernatorial run.
All right, here's the big question, and we're going to have time. You guys will come back over the next year and a half. We can get into this in detail. Democrats, as Brad points out, really don't want a big primary fight where they spend a lot of money, right?
Right.
Is there any possibility that if Allison Schwartz, a heavyweight, Rob McCord, a heavyweight, enter the race, that the rest of them just don't run? I mean, we've seen that before, right? Do the Democrats endorse?
It's possible if you're sitting back there with no money to speak of, and you look at those two who have some money, say Sestak's out of it, you might be reluctant to get in, but Tom Wolf,
yeah, Wolf
he can get in if he wants.
Democratic endorsement doesn't really mean anything,
well,
as we saw in 2002. I mean, and they're not real good at field clearing the way the Republicans are.
Right.
You look at what happened in 10 with the Republicans, where they cleared the field for Tom Corbett. They did that with the AG's race as well. The Republicans, when they decided on their chosen one, they're really good at getting sort of the dead weight.
They do that better. They seem to do that better. Right?
Democrats, are more fractious and more entertaining. I mean, it gets a little bit more interesting.
That's why they're not a member of any organized party. We all remember.
Roger says.
All right, great update. All right, let's find out what's going on in energy competition. You look at your electric bill these days. We'll find out what the competition is doing and what kind of choices you have when we return.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the State System of Higher Education, 14 state-owned universities. The state system is the largest provider of higher education in Pennsylvania. And by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back with Terry Fitzpatrick. He's the president and CEO of the Energy Association of Pennsylvania. He's our go-to guy on all things energy. Welcome back, Mr. Fitzpatrick, former member of the Pennsylvania Utilities Commission. Hey, let's talk a little bit about electric competition. I've been reading lately more about, oh, go and, it's a competitive market, get online, check out different electric companies, think about considering. Is there a kind of a new push going on? Now, you and I have talked about that for a couple of years. How does that stand right now?
There is a new push. I think it's being given more emphasis, particularly at the level of the Public Utility Commission, which oversees all of this. They've had an investigation going on for a couple of years, and I think they're really trying to get the word out to customers to take a look at who's providing their electricity and to make a choice.
Mm-hmm. When we talk about tell our viewers right now, if you're interested in looking for a new supplier, what should you do? What should the average person do? Is there a...
Let me give one basic fact, Terry. You should never overlook this, but first of all, the company that distributes your electricity, the utility, is still the same. You don't have a choice of that. We have one set of wires going down the street. Where you have a choice is with respect to who you buy the supply of electricity from.
Supplier, right.
So you can choose your supplier. We have competition since the 1990s here in Pennsylvania. The thing to do, one of the best things you can do is get on the PUC's website, their Power Switch website, and that will list all the suppliers for the area that you live in and tell you what price they charge, tell you whether they provide renewable energy as part of their portfolio, and a number of other alternatives.
But you would suggest, and you and I have talked about this, that this is fairly simple to do and people want to do it.
Yes.
And not get caught up in paying any more. But electric rates don't seem to be going up as much as, for example, gasoline, which, you know, wow. Is there a reason for that?
It's largely because of the emergence of the Marcellus Shale. Wholesale electricity prices tend to follow natural gas prices because natural gas is increasingly an important fuel in generating electricity. So these shale plays that have emerged are helpful in a number of ways. Certainly, if you have natural gas service, obviously it helps to keep the price of that service down, but it also helps to keep the price of electricity down.
Yeah. All right, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about something that's new to me, and that's called default service.
Right.
And why viewers should care about something called the default services. I know there's an investigation that's going to lead to perhaps action in the state legislature. Why should our viewers care about something called the default services?
Well, the PUC has had an investigation going for a couple of years of the retail electricity market, how they could make competition better. And that really keys on default service, and that is who provides your service, who gives you the supply of electricity, who supplies it to you if you don't affirmatively go out and choose somebody. Right now, that's the utility that does that. Now, the utility always provided your service in the old days before competition, but it was a lot different then because then utilities owned power plants. Utilities don't own power plants anymore, so we have to go into the market to buy it if we're going to supply it to customers. We currently do that in a way where we don't make any profit on it. We make profit on the distribution portion of your bill, not on the supply part.
Okay.
And we buy products now. It's really designed under the current law to be a fairly competitive, attractive product. It's stable because we use different types of contracts to purchase it. So it's a safe place for customers to go. I think what the PUC is looking at is, should we have a change in the philosophy behind that? Either, originally they were looking, should we get the utility out of that business, but I think they've become more realistic politically and think maybe they can't do that.
Right.
So should we change the philosophy behind default service so it's more a backstop and we assume that customers go into the market and shop? That's really, I think, what's at stake here.
All right, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, you know, we've been talking on this program a lot about infrastructure, roads and bridges, how important it is, something that doesn't often get discussed. We're going to talk about on here, and that's basically the infrastructure that supplies our energy, and if that doesn't keep pace, we could have not a dissimilar problem to what we face with roads and bridges if it deteriorates. We're going to ask Terry Fitzpatrick about that and more following these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care.
Hi, welcome back with Terry Fitzpatrick from the Energy Association. We're talking about a lot of important energy issues. One of the energy issues that we need to at least spend a minute or two on has to do with the infrastructure that we often don't think about, which is very, very important. I equate it to roads and bridges. We don't see it perhaps as much, but you're going to finish my sentence, right?
Yeah, it's very important in the energy side, too. Certainly important for electricity with the poles and wires. And on the natural gas side, we have some interesting policy developments now. Of course, there's been an emphasis for a good while on replacing some of the older gas mains that are out there, the cast iron and bare steel. Just last year, we had a law passed by the General Assembly to provide some help in doing that by allowing the utilities to recover those investments in a more timely way. And we think that's going to be very helpful. But more recently now we're seeing a new push with the emergence of the Marcellus Shale. I think one of the effects of that is more customers are looking to get natural gas service if it's not currently available to them. So there's a lot of talk about policies.
Talking about for heating their homes?
Yes, for heating their homes and for other uses. How can we get natural gas service to customers who don't currently have it available to them because the mains don't go through their neighborhood? So there's a lot of competing demands for infrastructure and investment here, and it's a good thing for gas utilities, but it's also something we have to balance.
I've often noticed that we don't think very much about the infrastructure until there's a storm, and suddenly you've got 95 electric poles that carry the wiring down, and then all of a sudden people realize, well, maybe that should have been replaced, or we should have, provided the resources to get that done. It's interesting how we often don't think of a problem in the same with on roads and bridges until we're driving down a street and we run into a pothole and need a new tire, or a bridge, it gets a little shaky. But what's the progress that we're making on that?
Well, the law, I mentioned the law that was passed last year that helps to give accelerated recovery. The utilities really are stepping up in this regard with more investments in their infrastructure. We realize that we need to do it. We have a long-term perspective on that. We just think it's very important to replace those things even before there's problems with them. Now, with the storms, certain things, no matter how new your infrastructure is, it's not going to help. But it is generally true that the more modern your infrastructure is, the more resilient it will be.
Let me ask you this final question. When we talk about the infrastructure for natural gas, are we talking geographically about a part of the state as opposed to another, or are we talking about all parts of the state?
We're really talking about all parts of the state, although in urban areas they tend to have the service available now because that's where it makes sense, I think, where customers are more densely clustered. It's easier to get gas service to them. So we're talking about a lot of suburban areas. Sometimes even in towns won't have service in all areas of the town. So it really affects all parts of the state.
All right, great update as always. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.